321, Cork 224, and oh my goodness me, the Munster Senior Hurling Championship is back, and what a game we have witnessed between two old foes, two old rivals, and this game absolutely lived up to the billing. In the end, I mean, in the first half, it looked like it was going to be an absolute whitewash, really, for Cork, but what a game of hurling, what a comeback from Clare, and even you have to commend Cork as well for, even after going behind, they then obviously get the late free, and end up, drawing the game in the end, which, look, they'll be disappointed, Cork, with how that game ended. I think there is questions over Cork now. I think they were looking at one stage in the first half when you were watching them play, you were thinking they look miles above everyone. And there was a part of me even thinking, like, obviously the Munster Hurling Championship is very competitive. You still have Limerick in there. There's a long way to go yet, but you were starting to think, like, is anything going to stop this Cork team? They just look absolutely incredible. But then in the second half, a mix of ill discipline, like with Shane Barrett getting sent off, foolish from him, as well as just giving away silly frees. And I know Cork fans will want to blame the ref, but to be honest with you, I think the majority of them were frees. I think the majority of them were fouls. And, the goals as well. Like, Cork just sort of lost their ball a little bit, and Clare came roaring back into it. Look, Clare were always going to come out in the second half and go absolute hammer and tongs. I mean, Clare were very, very poor in the first half. Like, it couldn't really get any worse, to be honest with you. They were losing ball, aimless ball constantly going into the full forward line that the Cork backs were gobbling up. And it was easy for Cork, and they were just playing right through them time and time again. And to be honest with you, like, Cork went in, 11 points up at half time. But to be honest, like, this could have been even more comfortable for Cork. And you felt like for Clare, it was going to take a miracle. It was going to take a monumental effort to stop Cork. And the two goals right at the start of the second half, David Reedy, brilliant, obviously, goal from him. Aidan McCarthy getting a goal as well. And it was on. It was absolutely on at that point. And like, Cork just, like, to be fair to Cork, like, when Shane Barrett gets sent off, I thought they actually did well after that point. After the red card, like, they were still able to knock a couple of points over, and they were still able to sort of control the game a little bit. I mean, to put things in perspective, like, after the red card, Clare only hit 2 points in the next 6 minutes. And Cork were doing well, but it was just, once that Peter Duggan goal goes in the final 2 minutes, Cork looked a little bit shook, and you can understand it to a certain extent. Clare have a very good record against Cork. What happened last year in the final, obviously in Ennis as well, you could see the Clare fans were bang up for it. And Cork were just losing every ball, and Clare were dominating really after that. Tony Kelly was getting a couple of points, Ian Galvin, a couple of frees from David Reedy. And all of a sudden you were thinking, Jesus, like, Clare are going to win this. Like, from being 11 points down to coming back and winning, like, what a statement and what an answer that would be to all the critics that went against Clare. People saying that Clare wouldn't even get out of Munster, people saying that Clare, are finished and everything else, which I completely don't understand, to be honest with you, because they're All-Ireland champions. They are All-Ireland champions. And look, yes, Munster is very, very competitive. Yes, you've Cork in there. Yes, you have Limerick in there. Yes, Clare don't have Shane O'Donnell, but they still have Aidan McCarthy. They still have Tony Kelly. They still have some of the best hurlers to play for Clare. David Reedy was obviously phenomenal as well. Mark Rogers with 2 points. And I think one player you have to shout out was Ian Galvin, who came off the bench and made a huge impact for this Clare side. He ended up hitting 2 points. And Clare stood up, and that's the thing about this Clare side, is that they do have a tremendous amount of bottle. Like, we saw in the All-Ireland final last year when Cork came roaring out of the traps and looked like they were going to blow Clare away, and then Clare, came roaring back into it. We saw them against Kilkenny last year when they were abysmal in that first half, and then in the second half came back and won. So this is nothing new for Clare, but I think for Cork, there will be massive question marks there, because Cork have looked flawless all year in the league. They lost in the final last year, but I don't think that was anything to do with Cork being poor. I think it was just two phenomenal teams playing at their absolute best, and playing some of the best hurling we've seen. One of the best finals we've ever seen. And like, in the first half, Cork were absolutely breathtaking. Like, Brian Hayes scoring 2-2. Like, what a unbelievable performance. 2 brilliant goals from him. Alan Connolly as well was outstanding, 3 points. that point he scored as well, like over his shoulder down near by the sideline. Wow, like that was absolutely breathtaking stuff there from his perspective. Absolutely brilliant. And Darragh Fitzgibbon was very lively as well. And it just looked, Cork were just so superior in that first half, and Clare just couldn't deal with them at all. And, for Cork to be putting on a performance like that in the backyard of the All-Ireland champions, it was some statement as it was looking. And look, Clare were always going to come rallying back in the second half, but Cork were phenomenal in the first half. In fairness to them, Clare just didn't look up for it at all. And, you were worried for Clare, to be honest with you, watching that first half. And maybe some of the critics that were against Clare were justified given how poor they were. But, it is a game of two halves, and Clare stood up in the second half. They were absolutely brilliant. Cork's mettle, I think, was severely tested. Their bottle, I think, was severely tested. And in my opinion, I'd have to say Cork crumbled. They absolutely crumbled. Bottle's a strong word at times. And look, they did come back to get the draw in the end. They didn't lose the game, but I think there was an element of bottling that game from a Cork perspective, because the way they just fell apart, towards the end of the game, they just couldn't get their hands on the ball at all. Left, right, and centre getting dominated. And Clare, should have won the game in the end. And look, the ref allows another minute to be added on, maybe with the stoppages of frees and everything else. It was probably the right decision. But worrying signs there from a Cork perspective. And I think, anyone who thought that Cork were just going to walk the All-Ireland and run away with it, I think we'll have to rethink that prediction, because, Cork do have vulnerabilities there. Defensively, they looked all over the place in the second half, whereas in the first half, they were brilliant. And the funny thing is, Clare weren't at their best today. Clare were nowhere near their best today. And Cork will get tougher games. They will get tougher opponents. If they play Clare again at some stage this year, which you'd imagine they probably would do, whether it be in an All-Ireland semi-final, maybe even a final, Clare will be better. Clare will be better. Look, Cork might be better defensively as well, but Clare will absolutely be better than what we've seen in, the majority of that game, in my opinion, and could even have Shane O'Donnell back in the mix as well. So, worrying signs there from a Cork perspective in the second half. Look, to get a draw in the end, I think they'll take it in the end. After it was, once David Reedy hits that late free, you're thinking, geez, for Cork to come out of this with nothing would be an absolute disaster. And the chances of Cork getting to a Munster final when you still have Limerick to come as well, they have to play Limerick away as well in the Gaelic ground. So that would have been hugely worrying. But they get the draw. It's still, they wouldn't have took that before the game because of how poor Clare looked in the league and everything else. And given how the game went, Cork absolutely wouldn't have taken a draw coming into this. But in the end, look, they get out without losing. They can reevaluate. It's the first game, and shouldn't get carried away or anything like that. But definitely some positives in the first half, but in the second half, some worrying performances there from a Cork perspective. Like even their bench as well, like Brian Roach and Declan Dalton scored, but didn't really get too much from their bench there. In my opinion. And yeah, big, what a game, to be fair. Look, and you have to commend both sides for an extraordinary game of hurling, absolute cracker of a match, in fairness. Brilliant stuff. And that's what the Munster Hurling Championship is all about, in fairness. So yeah, let me know your thoughts, your opinions on the game. In terms of man of the match, I mean, it's a difficult one because it's a game of two halves. Like in the first half, you're looking at Brian Hayes, you're looking at Alan Connolly as well. But then in the second half, you would have to look at Aidan McCarthy, who was absolutely outstanding. Peter Duggan maybe as well, David Reedy. It's a tough one really in terms of who you would go with as man of the match. Like I thought Ian Galvin, when he came on, was outstanding as well. But maybe Brian Hayes, 2-2, like brilliant performance overall from him. And Alan Connolly was outstanding as well, to be fair. But yeah, let me know your thoughts, your opinions on the game. We will be live after the Galway Roscommon match as well, so make sure to tune into that one as well. That game's just on at the moment. And hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll speak to you all later.